Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tea Time Talks with me, Dan Weiner, estate planning attorney here in San Diego. And I'm joined today by my friend and client, Jill Maher. And with everyone being at home for so long with their spouses, we wanted to have a licensed family therapist on today to get her perspective on all things marriage and family. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate the warm welcome. And for anyone who's looking for an estate planning attorney, my plug is for Dan. Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we can end the interview here. Thank you, Jill.
And we're done.
Yeah.
Later.
Excellent. So maybe you'll tell us just a little bit about your background. I know you you were living for a long time in San Francisco before you moved down to San Diego. So tell us a little bit about you to set the scene.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in California, and I moved to San Francisco, I want to say in 2006 for graduate school for my MS in counseling. Ironically, I got my undergrad in business and decided I didn't want to do any of that. So sought a different career and met my husband there, who was in his, when we met, he was in his last year of residency at UCSF. And we lived down in the peninsula for a while. He was working at a hospital there, kind of in Palo Alto, Mountain View area. And I also had a similar job working down there, not as a physician, but, I was in the same area. And we decided in probably around like 2016, 2017, that the Bay Area wasn't really feeling sustainable for us for a lot of reasons anymore. It really changed. The culture of it really changed a lot when tech kind of moved in. And you can argue there's a lot of positive things and negative things about it, but specifically kind of driving up the cost of living was, it felt untenable. And the amount of pressure, just kind of the culture of how people worked. And as a therapist, I was seeing a lot of how this was playing out in adults and kids and teenagers. I was just like, this doesn't feel like a good environment for us, especially neither one of us work in tech. This doesn't make a lot of sense. We had a baby at the time. And so, and just kind of wanting to figure out what environment felt like a better place to kind of settle down more long-term. We love San Diego. We have good friends here. Ryan was able to get a job here. And, we moved to San Diego. We're coming up on 2 years next month. So that's nice. A little bit about our journey.
Well, you found paradise here. There's not much to complain about.
Yes, I heard that you thoroughly enjoy your drives all around the state, and
I do. I constantly remark at how incredible the scenery is coming from London. I think it's even more incredible for me seeing sunshine. So
yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So tell me, what then sort of led you to become a therapist? What triggered that in you?
I think, like I said, I was finishing up my senior year in college, and I was just like, God, I really don't like anything of what I'm doing. It doesn't feel meaningful to me. It doesn't really feel like I'm helping anyone. And so I found that I really, I always had friends that kind of turned to me to talk about their problems and things like that. And I found that I always really enjoyed not only listening, but, trying to help support them in different ways. And I think that's when I got a little bit more interested in, psychology and learning more about the field, what things I could do with it, things like that. What feels ironic is I actually have spent the majority of my career in mental health in management, believe it or not. And so running programs and doing a lot of administration. And so which is a really great way to learn how things operate on a systemic level and being able to feel like you can make more impactful changes there. And not that you certainly can't make changes on a day-to-day basis with a client, because you absolutely can. I've seen that happen for 15 years and experienced it in my work. And at the same time, a lot of what you hear about sometimes from clients is the struggle within the system. And so having the opportunity to work with people who are wanting to make changes around that, provide input, felt really important to me. But as anything, there's trade-offs with that. So when we moved to San Diego, one of the things I really wanted to do was just kind of go back to being a therapist and not having to answer emails on the weekends and deal with staffing issues or, submit a report or, budget or all of this stuff. It just, my priorities shifted a little bit. And so
Sure.
that felt like a nice change to me.
So you want to be on the front lines, kind of helping people with whatever they're going through at any given time.
Yeah.
And sort of what are the key issues that you tend to help people through?
Well, mine's a little bit all over the board, but I specialize in domestic violence and sexual assault. But that in itself just really kind of lends to trauma of all kinds. And then I've also really in other areas have kind of expanded my career on wellness issues, like people that are really just this is kind of what came up for me as a mom, like really struggling with the day-to-day of, having time to take care of themselves, feeling like they are engaged and invested with their family or paying attention to their partners or paying attention to their children, paying attention to their job or the household or whatever it is going on. Because it was surprising and not surprising to me that a lot of moms and professional women really felt like they were struggling. And when you kind of got down to the basics of it, it's just kind of like, well, what are you doing for self-care? And they'd look at me like I'm insane. And or just even having a basic structure or schedule. So that aspect also felt really important to me to begin to address as I found challenges with that in my own life.
Okay. And in the last few months with coronavirus everywhere, have you found any particular unique issues in relation to that?
My colleagues and I kind of joke that there's no treatment manual for a pandemic. Like nobody really thought of kind of how this might play out. And I want to honor that the situation has been so different for everyone. And you see a lot of how kind of a socioeconomic divide can definitely play into this. Also, there's been some really wonderful articles written recently, the one that got a lot of attention in the New York Times about like the rush to open businesses, but schools and daycares aren't open. So like, seriously, how are you supposed to do that? Even for, working parents that have the luxury of working from home. But like, for example, I can't have my kid running around here all day, even though I'm home, just like you can't have your kid. Although I have had my kid burst in on some meetings, which has been really special, but it's, but again, it's like, there's a lot of issues coming up around kind of all the togetherness time. If you're at home, with your spouse, or if you're in the same room, like some people are working in a 1-bedroom apartment together. And then, normally people also have outlets for times of stress. And for a lot of people, those outlets have even been taken away, like with gyms closing, or if they go to like classes, or just even the ability to go for walks on the beach for a long time. Like now things are open, but a lot of people still don't generally feel safe and still utilizing those outlets, which is understandable. And so there's a lot of feeling of kind of stuckness, boredom, malaise. A lot of people, I think, in the beginning really thought that this was kind of a novelty, like, oh, I got to work from home, and wow, let's see how this goes. And then when people realize that this is going to be more long term, and no, my kid's school is not opening next week, like, and having to parent and homeschool and do all of these tasks that people just really didn't anticipate doing. And not to mention
overwhelmed.
Oh, it's so overwhelming. And not to mention, it's not like kids are handling this super well either. Like some kids are like, great, I watch TV all day. And other kids are really stressed with a lot of the changes. And we're seeing a lot of, especially with teens, a rise in depression, and anxiety of not really being able to interact with their friends. And we're seeing it in younger kids too, but just everything that was normal about their world has been taken away. Like, I can't explain this to my 2.5-year-old. She doesn't get it. But the stress is there for her because she's had so many changes in such a short period of time, and she doesn't know what to do with that.
That's an interesting point. So I think a lot of us forget about the impact that this must be having on our kids. You think of it as being adults who are really struggling right now. And just on one of the issues that you raised, which is kind of the lack of privacy, everyone being at home, usually I'm imagining if you have one of the couple who's looking to get some therapy, that can sometimes be a private thing that they don't want to discuss with their partners. And maybe they would come to your office in normal circumstances, or their partner might be out at work, so they could speak to you from the comfort of their home. How are you kind of handling that situation now?
So it's definitely, people are getting creative. I've done sessions with clients in their closet, in their car, in their garage, in a parking lot, or in a bathroom. I mean, it's really just been wherever people can find the space, because you touched on something really important, that freedom in itself is no longer available just to go seek an appointment and go to the office, or take a break from work and leave, especially maybe if they don't want their partner to know that they're attending therapy, if they feel unsafe in their relationship, which, by the way, with all of this togetherness, which I also want to highlight has been, a lot of people have felt that it's been beneficial in a lot of ways, where they're able to reconnect and engage with their families. But it also has shown a rise in violence in relationships, as well as child abuse, just simply because everybody's home all the time. They don't have the usual safety outlets that they can use. They can't go to school and report to their teacher, or the teacher can't keep an eye on them, or something like that. So there's some pros, and I think there's also been some pretty severe cons to this virus. And at the same time, it's the reality of what's happening right now. We can't really change that.
Yeah, no, there's devastating consequences all around. I think we're just scratching the surface. And I guess one question that comes to mind, if you are talking to somebody and you suspect there might be an abusive situation, either between the partners or in relation to children at home, are you very sort of attuned to that? Are you making sure that you listen out, you look out for that, and then what would you do?
Yeah, so it's definitely, it's a huge part of our training, and just the experience you have over the years. There's kind of, it runs two separate courses, for example, because one, the law requires you, if you suspect child abuse or elder abuse as a mandated reporter, you have to report. Violence between intimate partners is a little different. In the medical field, you have to report. If she was, a man or woman to walk into a physician's office and say, this is happening to me, they have to report. In a therapeutic capacity, we do not. If the kids witness the violence, yes, by the law, we are supposed to report that. But for people that have worked in the field of domestic violence for a long time, understand that there's a lot of fallout from that. And it doesn't necessarily create a safer environment for your client or for the kids when that happens. And so a little bit of that is kind of judging the situation and kind of what's going on, not diving too deeply. But if it's intimate partner violence, it's a lot about how can I make a safety plan? What can you do? For yourself in order to take care of yourself, to keep yourself safe. Because I think a lot of people make the assumption, it's they should just leave. That's the safest. And it's no, even before coronavirus, that's not necessarily true. And also now with coronavirus, where do they go? The option to leave is completely off the table for most. And so what does that mean for them?
Yeah. Well, if there's anyone out there listening who feels like they need your support and your skills and your expertise, how would they go about finding you?
So I have a website, www.jillmaherlmft.com. So I know that's kind of long. But I also basically, my last name, it sounds different than it's spelled. It's Maher. So you can find me on website, and then also I have a number where you can text or call me, 619-363-2976. I don't, just as a caveat, I don't work with kids anymore, but I know a number of great therapists that do. If you're seeking support for kids, I generally do 18 and up, and I work with a lot of women. I will say, if you're interested in marital or couples therapy, I also have great recommendations. I don't provide that type of service myself for many reasons, as I've learned over the years. I think I learned a long time ago that I just don't have the ability to remain completely objective. That I'm always like siding with someone, and I'm like, no, I can't do that as a couples therapist.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's frowned upon in the
yeah. But I know a number of people that are incredibly gifted in that work, and would be happy to give referrals for that as well. But that was not me.
Yeah, I can understand that. And good. And this is incredibly valuable work that you do. So thank you for being out there doing that. And one last question that I always like to ask people, as you know, part of my process is to talk about legacy planning. Yes. So not just on the financial side, but also, what kinds of experiences and values and insights do you want to pass on to your children or whoever. So in your case, you have Mia, who is 2.5, and I'd love to hear what kinds of legacy you'd like to leave behind for her.
I think that for her, and just in general, this idea of authenticity, like you deserve to be loved and cherished and treated well for who you are, and that help when you can, and also set boundaries around that. But overall, I want in my work, I want people to feel valued. I want her to feel valued. I want my husband to feel valued. I want her to feel seen. And I think a lot of times when people, for example, just even come into therapy, it's this idea of being seen. Like, I hear you, I get it. This is really hard. And that we are often stronger than we think we are. And I think that's a really important thing to kind of carry with us, even in the face of like some really crappy stuff. But and ask for help when needed, because I think a lot of people are like, no, I got this, it's fine. And especially a lot of the moms I know. And I'm just like, you're drowning over here. We're all drowning over here. Like, ask for help, please. And, and the cheesy thing is, like, to be kind. Like, you never know what battle other people are fighting, if it's harder than yours, or maybe they're just having an off day. That's a valuable thing I learned as a server in a restaurant for a long time. It's like, it's okay. Maybe they had a really bad day at work, and I'm
not going to think badly of them. They're talking to me like that because of something in their life. Yeah.
No, years of working in that industry really helps you. It's good training to be a therapist, because it really helps you understand that you cannot take things personally like that. It's just kind of like, okay.
I can imagine. Well, look, I think that's all good advice. It's good for all of us to try and think about how we can step outside of ourselves, especially right now, while things are extremely challenging for everybody in all different ways. So stepping out and actually thinking about others and what's going on in their lives, I think that's a good message for us to end on.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to say, Dan, is one thing I really like about what, in addition to all of the other things that you do within kind of helping families build a trust or will, is, and I know everyone that's listening, it doesn't sound like the most uplifting topic in the world. Like, no one's like, hey, let's spend a Saturday doing this.
Yeah, nobody ever says that.
Nobody ever really says, hey, I want to spend my Saturday going to therapy. So, some people do, some people don't. But one thing, just being in my field, that I can really appreciate is the short-term guardianship piece, that especially if you're hospitalized and your actual people that you've named as guardians are far away. Just in my experience with the system and working with Department of Family and Children's Services, CPS, all of that, yeah. I never wanted for 1 minute my kid to spend time with them in any capacity. Yeah. And I think that felt so important to me, that no matter what, my kid from start to finish will be with somebody they trust and they feel safe with, versus a stranger. And, there's so many lovely people that work for this system. And at the same time, your kid or kids are already going through enough that they don't need this kind of another traumatic situation piled on them. So I was really grateful that somebody thought of that, because I never thought of that. And I was like, that's awesome. I just assumed that, they'd just hang out until somebody showed up. And I'm like, I don't know why I assumed that. That was really dumb. But
yeah, no, thanks for raising that. The kids protection planning aspect of what we do, that is absolutely critical. As you say, there are lots of great people out there who can watch kids in an interim period, but also there are people that you wouldn't want coming near your children. So why take the risk? You can, to put it bluntly, so you can put plans in place to make sure that never happens. So I appreciate you raising that, and I appreciate very much you taking the time to join me today. Thank you very much, Jill.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Dan, and I look forward to seeing you and Miriam soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jill. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.